Hi guys, Ricky Pope here, and this week on the Christian Nerd Unite podcast, I talk with Ryan Beck, the Chief Technology Officer for Pray.com. We talk about faith, prayer.com, and artificial intelligence, plus scripture and nerdy news, and we'll get to all of that right after this. You guys know I love sharing Jesus and my nerdiness with you every week. And you know we are part of the Christian Nerd HQ podcast network. Make sure you check out all the great podcasts. Go to Christian Nerd HQ for links. Outside of Christian Nerd HQ, I have been working with a team that is about to launch a new podcast, telling stories of ordinary people doing extraordinary things in ministry, called Stories of the Way. I'll be letting you know more about it over the next few weeks. If you're wanting to start a podcast, a faith-based podcast yourself, and are looking for someone to coach you along the way, let me know. I'd love to hear about what you're trying to do and discuss ways we might be able to help. Now let's read some scripture. Mark 16:14-16. Later, Jesus appeared to the 11 as they were eating. He rebuked them for their lack of faith and their stubborn refusal to believe those who had seen him after he had risen. He said to them, "Go into all the world and preach the gospel to all creation. Whoever believes and is baptized will be saved, but whoever does not believe will be condemned." Acts 15:7-9. After much discussion, Peter got up and addressed them. "Brothers, you know that some time ago God made a choice among you that the Gentiles might hear from my lips the message of the gospel and believe. God, who knows the heart, showed that he accepted them by giving the Holy Spirit to them, just as he did to us. He did not discriminate between us and them, for he purified their hearts by faith." Today, technology is pretty amazing. And apps and social media are leading the way right now. I have a friend that I work closely with serving as a digital missions trainer. And he and I agree. We feel that with the technology of today, it could be in our lifetime or in the lifetime of our children that the gospel is literally shared to every tongue, tribe, and nation. I'm seeing people reach out through websites, social media messages, and apps exploring what faith really means and what this whole Christianity thing is every day. These people often feel safer asking the questions online first. We find that they are actually searching the internet, like through Google, to find some of these answers. Well, I want to encourage you to support those who are creating spaces for seekers to find out more online first. I would encourage you to check out findinggodonline.com. They support this kind of work with the goal specifically of moving people from online to offline discipleship. Now for some nerdy news. Wendell Pierce, probably best known for his role in HBO's The Wire, has been cast as Perry White, the editor-in-chief of the Daily Planet, in James Gunn's upcoming Superman movie. Perry White was first seen in 1940, a Superman radio serial, and has been portrayed by various actors through the years, including Jackie Cooper and Lawrence Fishburne, which is one of my favorites. David Cornsweet and Rachel Brosnahan are cast as Clark Kent and Lois Lane, and Nicholas Hoult as Lex Luthor. This film is set for a July 11th, 2025 release. The Batman Part 2 has been postponed until October 2nd, 2026, a year later than it was originally scheduled for. This change was part of a broader adjustment of Warner Brothers' release calendar, which also included moving the release dates for Maggie Gyllenhaal's The Bride, Barry Levinson's Alto Knights, and Paul Thomas Anderson's currently untitled film. The sequel to Matt Reeves' The Batman was affected by last year's strikes, pushing it out of the 2025 release plans. The first film was a significant success, opening to $134 million domestically and accumulating a global total of $770 million, which spurred the expansion of this new Batman universe, including spin-offs like Colin Farrell's Penguin series and a hoped-for Arkham Asylum series. In our interview today, we talk with Ryan Beck, the Chief Technology Officer of Pray.com. We talk all about faith and the app, Prayer.com, and artificial intelligence. Let's get right into our interview. Ryan Beck, it is so great to have you on the Christian Nerds Unite podcast today.
It's great to be here, Ricky. Thanks for having me.
So, Ryan, for those who are not familiar with you or may not be familiar with Pray.com, tell us a little bit about who Ryan Beck is and what Pray.com is.
All right. Well, thanks for that opportunity. So I come from about going on 20 years now of experience in the faith industry in some capacity, where I was either working in ministry, going to Bible college, working with ministries in their software organization, or at Pray.com building software for faith organizations. And so I'll take you a little bit back to my college days. So I went to Bible college to study, become a minister.
Okay.
I had the opportunity to work in a ministry for a couple of years. That was part of the agreement. I go to Bible college, get 1 to 2 years of experience in the ministry. And I found that I love the church. I love the people. I didn't know if I was actually called to be a pastor. And so I decided that I was going to get a computer science degree and a philosophy degree. I love philosophy and I love computer science. And those two worlds intersect a lot more than a lot of people think. But anyways, I went and I got those degrees, and I had an opportunity to work for some nonprofits. I went to Calvin College, which is in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and they really teach you how to be in the world as a Christian and doing things that everyday people would do, but doing it in a way that impacts the kingdom. And so I had this opportunity to go work for some nonprofits and help develop out their software organizations. Really what it was doing was they were digitizing their organization for the next 20 years of ministry. And so I had this unique experience where they had a lot of physical operations of data transfer and donor communications, but they wanted to digitize that so it became more efficient and they can have a much larger reach. And so I did that. And while I was working in this nonprofit, it's called Mission India, and they work in India, but also in the Greater Asia area doing philanthropic work in the faith space, but also just general like education of children and women, helping them develop business practices and things like this. So during that time, I ran into an old friend, Steve Gattina, who's the CEO of Pray.com. And we went to junior high and high school together, and he told me about what he was doing. And we started talking, Steve, myself, Mike, and Matt. Those are the 4 co-founders of Pray. And we knew that there was an opportunity to do something massive. We all come from our own faith experience and faith background. And Steve had this original idea of a digital destination for faith because he was early in his faith journey. He had just gone through a pretty tragic situation at his last job where he worked with his mentor and business partner. And his mentor died unexpectedly in a helicopter crash. Oh, wow. And he worked in the helicopter industry. And so his business partner was flying that day, and he was now the new CEO of this company that he got brought on to run for his mentor. And that rocked his world. He did not really have much of a faith background, faith experience, but he had some friends that loved him and cared about him and shared the gospel with him through podcasts. So they shared a link to listen to some pastors. And so that pastor that they shared a link to was Matt Chandler. And he started listening to this podcast, and he was skeptical, very skeptical at first, as probably a lot of us who come to faith. I came to faith when I was 19. And so we come in very skeptical, right? Kicking and screaming. And he gave it a shot, though. He listened to it, and it transformed his life. And he began to look for other faith content, and he couldn't find it. And so he was early on in this journey when I ran into him. And then Mike, Matt, Steve, and myself, we started seeing what would it look like to have a digital destination for faith, where people online can connect with faith content and faith organizations. And so that's what we set out to build at pray.com. And at pray.com, what we do is we help people find faith content and pastors that resonate with them so that they can grow their faith and cultivate community online. That's from the average churchgoer perspective. Now, from the ministry or the church perspective, we enable ministries and churches with technology so that they can reach people online. And so what we've found in our discovery, one of the biggest problems in the faith space is they know physical church. They know how to do physical buildings and get people to go to a physical church. But we know that through studies, many studies, church attendance is on a decline. But if you're like, I think most Christians would agree, everyone has a God-shaped void in their heart. We're all spiritual beings. And so spiritual practice and spiritual curiosity has not declined. It's still trending pretty high. And so the problem that we see at Pray is that physical church attendance is declining, not because people don't care about faith. It's that they're seeking faith in different places. It's not in physical buildings anymore, not just in physical buildings anymore, but also online. And one of the biggest actions that we can do as Christians as part of the Great Commission is to go online and meet people where they're actually doing faith now. And as we started talking to these ministries, they're not Googles and they're not Facebooks. They don't have tech teams to build software to reach these people. And so we saw that as the best value. The biggest problem that we can solve in the faith space is that we can equip ministries with digital tools and a digital platform that has people coming and consuming faith content. We can connect those ministries to those members that are on pray.com. And so you can kind of look at us as a place where people come and listen to faith content on the pray.com website and application, but also ministries connecting to that platform. And so not only will people find faith content, they'll find ministries that resonate with them. And so that's what we do. We connect people to pastors, ministries to members, and that's pray.com.
Awesome. Well, so one thing you may not know about me is that I actually work in a similar space, an adjacent space internationally. I help ministries. This is not my podcasting job. This is the part of me that actually pays my bills. I work with international ministries running social media ads and pages to find seekers online locally where they're at, and then meet them face to face. So kind of an adjacent space. So I'm definitely right there with you. People are interested in spiritual things around the world. And my specialty is kind of working with indigenous believers, especially in when you said you started in India. India is one of the places I've worked extensively. Worked in Africa, worked in Central Asia and East Asia as well. But the idea that people are seeking spiritual, information.
Hmm.
I am a strong believer behind that. That there are people
Yeah.
around the world that are looking for this kind of information, and if we're not in that digital space, we're missing out. So
Yeah. They'll
I'm
find content. They will
yes,
find content. It just won't be the Christian content. And so you can expect that other faith and spiritual practices will thrive while Christianity doesn't, if we're not engaged in that space, right?
exactly. I'm right there with you. Totally agree. Now, one of the things that had been brought to my attention when I was introduced to you was you have some interest in artificial intelligence, at least
Mm-hmm.
some passing interest. Now, what do you see as far as AI goes? How do you see that helping us reach that digital audience who is spiritually open?
Yeah. So I think that the there's been a couple technological revolutions,
Mhm.
the internet, the mobile app, that I think this is not, like an indictment or a shame on the church, that we we were kind of laggards on. We
Mhm.
didn't adopt the internet as fast as we should have, or we
Mhm.
could have, I should say. We didn't adopt mobile as fast as we could have.
Mhm.
But the great thing about this new technological revolution that's happening in the AI space is that it could help the church space leapfrog all of that lagging that they've done, and
Mhm.
warp speed them, teleport them to the cutting edge technology. And so I think AI has that capability for the church to
Mhm.
really enhance its capabilities online, so that they could actually be a voice in the digital space.
Mhm.
Right now, they're just echoes. They're not the voice. They're not voices. There's so many other voices that are being
Mhm.
heard online, and it's not the Christian community. It's not the gospel message. It's not the message of Jesus, right? And so we have the ability with AI to help teleport the church to where they may have been lagging 2 years ago. They don't have to be laggards anymore. They'll be caught up with everybody else. And what do I mean by that? Because those are just me saying things. How do churches interact? Would be,
Mhm.
let me ask you this, and maybe it's too broad of a question, but maybe play along with me. How do churches operate Sunday to Sunday? Do they pay a lot of employees, or do they work with a lot of volunteers?
In the churches I have had experience with, it's a lot of volunteers. You have
Yeah.
a few paid professionals, mostly volunteers.
Hmm. And that's for a physical location with hundreds of people, maybe thousands if it's a big church,
Hmm.
tens of thousands if you're like the 1% of churches, right? But these
Right,
these aren't huge numbers when you think of digital communities. Digital
right.
communities, they're thousands, tens of thousands, millions.
Hmm.
They don't The church doesn't have the resources to employ enough people to
Hmm.
support those communities, so they can be daunting and overwhelming. And so
Hmm.
what we've done at pray.com is we've built these digital tools to support this digital community that we've built on pray.com. And what we've done is we basically empower ministries with those tools so
Hmm.
that they have a digital workforce, a volunteer base that enables them to do digital ministry. And how we enable them with that volunteer base is through AI. So they can do things, AI can do things for us that is like having a volunteer base, right?
Hmm.
It could create social assets. You talked about how you
Hmm.
work with companies to get social media posts. It could create blog articles. It can help you do sermon research. So you want to write about a topic.
Hmm.
You may have 5 to 10 different screens that you're searching around, at the Hebrew text here. But with these tools, you can just use one interface, ask it questions, and it can give you results, right? And you can even make it get smarter and train it to be more aligned with maybe your church's dogma or doctrine, right?
Hmm.
And so there's a lot of tools that are coming out that we built. So I'll give you an example. translations. You work with a lot of indigenous people.
Mm-hmm.
A ministry can upload their sermon from Sunday. We'll translate it into dozens of languages for them automatically. It'll be done. You're talking minutes, depending on how long the file is, tens of minutes, right?
Yeah.
Not very long. Fraction of the cost, at light speed compared to what you had before. We're even rolling out video translation. So you and I can have this dialogue in another language, and our mouths actually move to the words of that language, rather than like the old kung fu movies, back in the
Yes.
day. Where,
Yes.
and so we're rolling that out. And then we have other automation AI tools that really help you create devotionals from your sermons. Maybe you want to create a 5-pack of devotions from your sermon for your congregation to read through email every day. Automatically done for you. Saves you so much time. Oh, maybe you want study guides for your sermons. Automatically done through AI. And you have the ability to edit it and to, make sure that it's something that you want to put out in the world. It's not, something that we just go, don't worry, forget about it, and we'll take care of it. No, we want to make sure that we utilize AI in a safe manner that protects the integrity of your message, right? That is very important.
Yes.
And so we want to make sure that you have the power before it goes out to the world to make sure you can edit and you have that control. We just want to take away some of the heavy lifting. That's mundane work. It's not spirit-filled work. It's just mundane work that anyone can do. It just takes a lot of time and a lot of money a lot of times.
And you brought up a great point, and I want to kind of dive into that, because I think this is part of the fear of AI for some people. When ChatGPT came out, I was an early adopter. I dived in shortly after it became available, as soon as they allowed me, because had to get on the waiting list. But one of the things I found was sometimes, depending on how you write your prompt, and if you're not familiar with AI, a lot of times you have to write a text prompt to get it to do what you want. Depending on the text prompt, sometimes the AI system, especially early on, didn't just give you wrong information. It would almost appeared that it made up things. And it was a little unclear as to why it was doing why it was doing things that it was doing. So I think some of the concern for some people is, if I let AI do too many things, it will do things I don't want it to do, or it will do things in a way I wouldn't do them. And how, other than just letting it do its thing and us going in and re-editing at the end, how can we alleviate some of those concerns for people who are it's like, I'm open to using AI, but I'm a little scared of doing it. How can we alleviate those
Those are
concerns?
great questions and very legitimate concerns, right? Currently, the LLMs that we work with, these AI, these chatbots, the chat GPTs of the world, they don't know how to be.
You might explain what an LLM is.
Large language models. So these are general purpose large language models, which is just a fancy way of saying chatbot that's really smart, right? And so what these things like Chat GPT can do, they can answer a lot of questions for you, and a lot of times it's pretty good. Sometimes it does what's called hallucinations. The one thing that Chat GPT or any other of these large language models, they're not very humble. What do I mean by that? They won't tell you, I don't know that answer. They will make up an answer for you. They always will answer your question, whether it's right or wrong. That's just something built into the fundamentals of how they work. Right. And so you like, if you do a keyword search on Google, you may not get certain results depending on how you phrase it. And if you do a keyword search on Google, you'll get more exact matches and things like that. And so keyword search tends to be, this thing that we've used with Google for decades now, tends to actually give us more precise answers, and actually is a little more humble. It'll say, hey, I don't have results for that, right?
Yeah.
These chat GPTs, they'll answer questions they shouldn't be answering. Now, what we can do to alleviate that, one is you never let it have the final say. You put the response, the control into the ministries or the leaders' hands, so they can review it and say, for instance, we're taking a sermon. They make a sermon. We use AI to get the transcript, and that transcript doesn't always come out great. Sometimes you have to work with different models. So that's what we do. We test out. We do these comparisons across models to see who can actually transcribe an audio file the best. But that transcript may not even be perfect. And so what you want to do is you want to have edit access on that transcript, so you can read it and be like, well, it's not. It may not know to capitalize he when referring to God or Jesus or something like that, or it may just misunderstand a word you say. The one I think that's pretty interesting is the Chinese President Xi. When you're watching a YouTube video and Google does the closed caption, it always says President G, like the letter G. It doesn't do XI. Right. And so it's just, that's it transcribing. That's the AI transcribing, doing its best it can. And so you have to edit that. You want to edit that. And so you always want the final say to be in the human's hands. So you can kind of do that human in the loop model. So that's one way. But then you can start tuning these models so that they answer things more, like I talked about, according to doctrine. So say you're a Presbyterian, and you're a 5-point Calvinist, and you don't want to answer things as an Arminian, right? And so you want to maybe train the model a little bit to be more Presbyterian. So you can do that, and so it'll start answering like a Presbyterian. You can also do augmentations on the prompt. So you talked about a prompt engineering, where there's something called prompt augmentation. And so what you can do is, sometimes these general chat interfaces that we deal with, they have a large corpus of knowledge, and you ask it for something, and it's just traversing all that knowledge base, and it's just grabbing that knowledge from wherever it's been trained on. But maybe you don't want it to go grab all that data. You want it to actually just look up, maybe you're asking questions about John Calvin, and you want to actually go only search, what does John Calvin say about predestination? Well, you can have some data, some PDF files or books that have been digitized that our system will go to. It will look for things in the John Calvin corpus around that topic that you want, and then inject it into the prompt, so that the prompt now responds according to that knowledge base, that information. And it doesn't just go and search God knows where, because I don't think anybody else knows, right? So it goes and actually searches the knowledge base that you provided it. And that's what's called retrieval augmented generation, sometimes called RAG. So that's where you can augment your prompts with your own data, your own knowledge base. And so you can do that, or you can fine tune it. And so you can train it to be a little more biased towards your doctrine. Gemini came out, right? And Google released their Gemini model, and it was a little too woke for some folks, and it started doing some funny things. Well, it got a little too biased in one direction. And so you can do that too. You can bias it in other directions, right? Like I said, you can make it more, more Episcopalian than Presbyterian, or vice versa.
Awesome. Well, and you mentioned, bias. I'm starting to see, we're starting to see now in a lot of these AI options, where AI is fairly open, can do tons and tons of things, but then the creators have set some limitations on the AI. And I actually just had this conversation on the podcast with another person. His episode hasn't come out yet. And we talked a little bit about this, where different AI companies, you mentioned Google, ChatG, Open AI is one. There's 3 or 4 different ones, Bard, but they have slightly different philosophies, and they've put safeguards is not the word I want to use. It's not the right word, but they've put certain limitations on the AI. So when I was trying to be nerdy and I needed an image, and one AI wouldn't generate the image for me because it would not use any characters from any copyrighted thing. So no Star Wars characters from Dolly. But then I went over to Microsoft, and they're like, "Sure, here's all the stormtroopers you want."
Yeah.
So are you seeing how important is the philosophy behind the people who are writing the AI going to come into play? Do you think in general? And then with your group and your company, how are you putting limitations there for the AI controls?
So I think giving people choices and options is important. So we don't have a dependency on only one service, right? One AI model. We'll try variety, and we can roll back to or go to different models. And there's a lot out there. There's open source models. Facebook has open source Llama. You have Minstrel out of France. There's some work that people are doing in the Christian space where they're using Minstrel they have a fine-tuned model that if you're rather technical, you can go and you can ask it questions. And they did that on the Minstrel model, which is a French company. Then there's Bard, which you talked about, and then Gemini and things like this. And so as humans, we have bias, and we create these large language models. So these things will have our bias, right? And so I think that is always going to be there. And for our customers, it's about giving them the options and the control, right? Helping automate the mundane, but still keeping them in the driver's seat so that they can control it as much as they want to control it, and they have optionality. I think that's how we can navigate those things, because there's going to be a lot of different things. People are going to, Google is going to make something that's going to be for their customer base. They have a large customer base. Yeah. So it's, they're not going to do things that are against their business goals in the long term. There may be mess ups, but they'll take that feedback and they'll adjust because they're a business. But there are people working in those organizations, and so I think that's how it's going to shake out. You can just look at the company and you can kind of expect it. You can kind of get a sense of the biases that would be built into it based on your knowledge of that company, because they're the ones building it, right? So there's always going to be that, but there's going to be a lot of options out there. So
awesome. Well, let's look at the local church. You made a comment earlier, the church that has tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of members is like the 1%. So the last study I read, which this was a bunch of years ago, so it may not be perfectly accurate anymore, but 95% of churches or 90% of churches are in the 100 or smaller members. How do you think that a local church should start implementing these tools? What do you think are just like 2 or 3 good ways for a local pastor, a local church, 100 members or less? How should they start thinking about implementing these kind of things?
So I think how I would answer it would be looking at the physical and the digital representation of their church. I believe that church is hybrid, and it's going to continue to be that way. And that's just the way church is going. That's what the data says. That's what we've seen. COVID accelerated that.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
it's not to say that it's not to say that the physical church goes away. It's just that now you have this supplement to it, and this augmentation of it, where you may not find your congregation coming Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday, or maybe they just come 3 Sundays now, and so they've cut back, but they attend digitally one of those Sundays. And so I think that you're going to see people's preference changing, but they still want to engage with their faith. And so even these 100 people churches, you'll want to think about it. How can AI really help my physical church and my digital church? And AI, when it comes to the physical church, I think it's things around helping them prep for the services, right? So what the AI can do really well right now is video, audio, and text, right? It doesn't create things in the real world. So think about the things that you have video, audio, and text for in your physical church. You think about your bulletins that you hand out. Do those have to be physical? Can they be online? If they're online, you can generate them. Or maybe you want them physical, but now you can utilize AI to help you generate those bulletins, and you don't have to type out everything. It's a little easier, a little more efficient. And so just utilizing those tools that can help you be more efficient with your digital text, your digital audio, and your digital video. And then now with AI, digital church is an option for you. It may have seemed overwhelming and daunting, but you can now spin up a digital twin of your church, and people can now engage with it 24/7. They can go to your church 24/7 now. Your doors or your physical doors do not determine if you're open or closed anymore. And so now your congregation can get the supplements they need Sunday to Sunday rather than just on Sunday. And so I think that's how I would think about it, is now you can be digitally enabled because that's how your congregation, whether you're a 100-person church or a 10,000-person church, your congregation is engaging with their faith Sunday to Sunday. And if you only allow them to engage with you and their faith on Sunday or specific days of the week, then you're missing opportunities to really disciple and cultivate that relationship and that community with them the other times. So that's how I would think about it, the physical and the digital.
Well, talk to us a little bit about pray.com. Now, you've talked to us a little bit. You talked about podcasts, sermons, there's content there. What other kinds of things will people find at pray.com?
So you go into pray.com, you're going to find content and you're going to find community. And so on the content side, you can find meditations, sleep songs. So we have sleep songs with TD Jakes. So TD Jakes will take you through all the Psalms, but in a context made for bedtime. So when you're going to sleep, you can relax and fall asleep to the word of the Lord. Or you can go on TikTok and scroll, or Instagram or Facebook, whatever you want. But you might want to try out falling asleep to something that's edifying, that's really going to kind of build your mental and spiritual health, right? And so we have sleep psalms and we have other sleep content. We have meditations for the midday. So we have meditative prayers with Tim Clinton. And so he has he's a big time Christian counselor, works with a lot of people, a lot of Christians, helping overcome mental health issues. And so we've done something called meditative prayers. So you can engage with his Christian meditations to help you in your mental health. So mental health is a big aspect of the resources that we provide. And then your general Bible content. So we have Bible in the Year with Jack Graham. It's one of the largest podcasts, top 50 podcasts in the world. Bible in the Year with Jack Graham. You go through the Bible in a year with a pastor out of Texas who will help you understand, will break down the Bible in a very simple manner. And then if you want to get real fancy, you can listen to James Earl Jones reads the Bible. So Darth Vader, you like Star Wars, Darth Vader will read you the Bible as well.
I
So
love
we have
that.
that on there. Yeah, me too. I mean, who doesn't love James Earl Jones? Come on.
That's awesome. Well, thanks for being on the show. I've loved our conversation. I love talking about all these nerdy things, and I'm super fascinated with the idea of AI and how ministry needs to jump on board. And I'm right there with you. This is an opportunity right now. We're at the cusp of something new. If the church doesn't get involved, we're going to get left out. And I think that happened with the film industry many, many years ago. And we're just starting to catch up. We kind of, we did a little bit on TV, but we didn't dive in wholeheartedly on TV. I think the church has done slightly better on social media. I think artificial intelligence is a place where we can try to be one of the leaders and help mold this thing rather than be behind the plate and just hope that whatever falls out is going to work. So I'm right there with you. We need to be a part of helping mold this thing. Well, how can people follow you or find the Pray app? What's the best way to keep up with what's happening there?
So I think the best thing, what I would say, is if you go to a church or you are representing a church, pray.com/ministries. That is the best way to get in contact with us to really help enable your church for the next 20 years. We've built the software and the infrastructure, the operating system for digital church to help you come online and reach a new audience. Take away all the hassle. We'll help you do it. We'll empower you with great tools. So just go to pray.com/ministries. That's what I encourage. And if you want to reach out to me directly, Ryan@pray.com. That's my email. That's the best way to get a hold of me. Unless you're on Strava and you want to follow my runs and you want to run with me, then you can do that too. But Ryan@pray.com.
Awesome. Well, Ryan, it's been great to have you on the podcast today. Thank you so much for your time.
Ricky, thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
It was great getting to know Ryan. I hope you will consider checking out pray.com this week. I've included links down in the show notes below. Well, that's all I have for you today. Don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, click all those links, whatever they are. That way you can stay up with us anytime we put out new content. You can find our social links and links to our YouTube channel and our online store at ChristianNerdsUnite.com. If you enjoy the show and want to help even more, consider becoming a supporter on Patreon. All of our Patreon levels have great benefits and make a huge difference in the ministry we're able to do. Supporters will also get to hear exclusive stories of believers we are serving around the world through our ministry partners. To check it out or partner with us, go to patreon.com/ChristianNerdsUnite or ChristianNerdsUnite.com and click support in the menu. And don't forget to check out ChristianNerdHQ.com for more great podcasts. Before you go, I do want to leave you with this blessing from Romans 16. Now to him who is able to establish you in accordance with my gospel, the message I proclaim about Jesus Christ, in keeping with the revelation of the mystery hidden for long ages past, but now revealed and made known through the prophetic writings by the command of the eternal God, so that all the Gentiles might come to the obedience that comes from faith. To the only wise God be glory forever through Jesus Christ. Amen. We'll see you next week. Blessings.